Would you like to know why I am concerned about artificial intelligence? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how we are trying to replicate the human brain, and the human brain is something we do not understand. The vast majority of it we don't understand, and trying to replicate it means we're trying to rebuild something which is potential and functionings we have no clue about. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. So artificial is essentially a branch of computer sciences that tries to replicate the human mind in terms of building a system, an artificial system that mimics the way the human mind learns and solves problems, for example. Now, I need to say as a disclaimer, I'm by no means a specialist in artificial intelligence. My knowledge is very rudimentary, but I am aware of the profound complexity of the thing that artificial is trying to replicate, our brain, which is essentially half the story. We're like trying to replicate the brain with artificial intelligence, so it's half of the thing which I understand, and I think it's enough to give a potential, maybe relevant opinion. Okay, so now I don't really want to dive into the seemingly impossible act of accurate replication, you know, trying to rebuild replicate the mind, because it is so complex. It's so complex, and trying to rebuild it is like, it's like trying to rebuild an entire universe. I talked to a molecular biologist yesterday, and she says within biologists, within that sort of domain, that discipline of science, they consider the human body to be a universe of itself. Like you have the outside universe, which we try to measure and understand with disciplines like physics, and then on the outside we have the complexity, the unfathomable complexity, and within the human we have another whole universe, let alone just the body. If you go to the cell, the scope of a cell, it's like another universe again. It's just so complicated. All right, so the classic argument against artificial intelligence is something like, it'll become so powerful that we will lose control of it, we won't understand it, and it will end up dominating and decimating us. I understand that argument, but I want to sort of dive into something a bit more specific. If we aim to replicate the brain, we already know with 100% certainty that we're attempting to build something we don't understand. And that's where, I mean, maybe this has to do with my lack of knowledge on the literal act of building artificial intelligence, but I'm thinking, from the outside, it seems a bit absurd. We're trying to design something that we just don't understand, and from like a rational, or not even a rational, a mix of rationality and emotions, I think, red flag. What are we doing? It sounds like a risky, dangerous endeavor. So to try to grasp how absurd it seems to try and rebuild the human mind, I want to give a few examples of how, in ways in which we don't understand the brain or the psyche. Now, the psyche is more than just the brain. It's like what people would consider a soul, and it's essentially your whole being. But, okay, where do random thoughts come from? We all have random thoughts. They come from somewhere, because we experience them. They must come from somewhere. Where? We don't know. Where do dreams come from? People have some ideas. They think it's sort of like just I forgot the term. It's like flickering. They think it's just random flickers in your brain that are creating dreams. But the dreams are so specific and so clear. I don't think I think it's implausible to call them random sparks of neuroactivity. I think that's a bit unsophisticated. then some people have religious experiences, like, profound experiences, and quite a lot of people have them. Where do those come from? What triggers them? We don't know. How does the psyche transform? How does your brain transform? Like, I've noticed in the last 6 months, my outlook on life, not just like, I want to do this with my career, I want to do this with my life. It's more the way your brain processes stimuli and thoughts and copes with them and stores them. That strategy by which it does that changes. And I think for me, it's a consequence of tapping into my moral conscience more and doing a lot of self-reflection, but that's changing the way my brain is sort of is functioning. Why does that happen? How does it happen? I don't know. And finally, the big question, what are the limits to our consciousness? That's where it gets dangerous now. Consciousness has produced both sensational as well as atrocious creations. We know that the mind is fully capable of conjuring thoughts that lead to homicide, genocide, acts against humanity, and generally steps that could destruct the globe itself. Like if somebody plans a genocide, that's consciousness that has conjured this plan. Its source lies within the human being, the human mind. That's worrying if we're trying to replicate that. So one key struggle of life or humanity is to rectify these thoughts, these declines in humanity, I would say, because they endanger life itself. The DNA is primed to survive, and if we have threats like these thoughts of resentment that end in genocide and homicide, we should try to figure out how to prevent these things, right? That's like an ethical concern. But if we construct a version of ourselves that is more intelligent or can utilize a greater portion of, let's say, our brain, of the brain, the human mind, we're essentially building humans that have at least an equal potential for destruction and creation, but are functioning on a greater level of brain power. So humans have built tools to mitigate the amount of evil that is acted out, like religious scriptures, stories, cultures, social norms. But artificial intelligence will be functioning at a level that will probably need novel tools, which we don't have because we don't know what the AI will necessarily need. And will it need it immediately? Will it immediately start to produce, destruction or creation? It's like a black box. You don't know what you're pulling out. If you really grasp it, I think, and I don't think I have fully grasped it yet, but I'm on the path to it, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And I think one can sum it up like this. When the freedom of the individual is removed, humanity sheds a tear. So if this intelligence grows to a degree, this artificial intelligence grows to a degree that it overpowers our decision-making, our freedom, then you can anticipate a decline in humanity, whether it is an increased level of suffering, complete destruction. If you look through history, occurrences where a system has removed the freedom of choice of the individual, the system never lasts very long. It collapses, but it drags frequently, or it has dragged millions of people down into destruction, into death. Yeah. So in conclusion, I think if I could just boil it down to the key thing that concerns me with artificial intelligence is that we're trying to build something that we don't understand. We're trying to replicate something, and the thing we're trying to replicate, we know very little of, and that's so dangerous because that thing we're trying to replicate has the potential for destruction. It even has a proclivity for it. Not just the potential, the proclivity for it. So you just need to look at human history to understand that proclivity is there. So I don't know if we're trying to run too fast, if we're just trying to build this artificial intelligence for seeking profit, to, automate life, to make it more simple, more easy, and so we have to struggle less. But that's not necessarily a good thing, because humans thrive off struggle. It's in our DNA anticipates struggle, and it rewards you actually for engaging in struggle, because the struggle is a necessary ingredient for progress and growth. And if we remove that stimuli of struggle, I do not know where we end up. I can tell you, if you vegetate all day, if you watch Netflix all day, you don't feel good about yourself. But if you get out of your comfort zone, go into a new situation, and come out the other side, you feel good about yourself. You feel energetic. You feel proud of yourself. Yeah. That's really my concern with artificial intelligence. So please leave a comment below whether you think there are any other reasons why artificial intelligence is really a danger, or really the basics of whether it's useful to invest in or trying to figure out, or it's better to stay away from. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.